You wake up one morning and you realize that your child is strangely different. In old Europe, this struck terror into the hearts of many. Parents would whisper about the changeling, a sinister substitute left by supernatural beings, often fairies, in place of a human child. Changelings were a staple of European folklore, thought to be fairy children or the offspring of other supernatural entities like trolls or elves, left in exchange for human babies whisked away to the fairy realm. These replacement children were often described as sickly, with peculiar features and behaviors, displaying a melancholy demeanor and an unusual appearance. Identifying a changeling was of utmost importance. The signs were clear to the believers: an inexplicable change in demeanor, physical anomalies, or unnatural dullness. Sometimes the changeling would display unusual behaviors far beyond their years. At other times, they would be unusually silent or inconsolable. Parents watched their children closely for any hints of fairy influence. An aversion to iron or a sudden inexplicable illness were ominous signs. The changeling myth served as an explanation for a variety of childhood ailments and development disorders that were not understood at the time. But why, you might wonder, did fairies steal human children? The reasons varied across cultures. Some tales suggested that fairies sought human children to strengthen their own bloodline, believing human offspring were healthier and stronger. Others spoke of fairies taking children to be slaves in their hidden realms. These motives reflected human fears and misunderstandings of the natural world. The idea that a fairy could replace a beloved child with a poor substitute spoke to the deepest anxieties about the fragility of life and the mysteries of the unknown. Folklore offered many ways to unveil a changeling. One such method involved cooking a peculiar dish, perhaps an egg still in its shell, or a brew of unusual ingredients. If the child exhibited fairy-like behavior, such as a sudden ability to speak, it confirmed the suspicion. The belief was that these strange actions would surprise the changeling into revealing his true nature. In desperation, some resorted to cruel methods, hoping to drive the changeling away and bring back their real child. This could involve exposing the child to the elements or placing them in perilous situations. Now, we might think it's easy to judge those parents, but consider their desperation then. They were trying to make sense of their world with the tools they had. Imagine a time without modern medicine or scientific understanding. When faced with inexplicable illnesses or changes in their children, these parents were left to grasp at any explanation that could offer hope. The fear of losing a child to unknown forces was palpable. Once a changeling was identified, the quest to retrieve the real child began. Legend suggested leaving the changeling on a fairy hill or at crossroads, accompanied by specific rituals or prayers, hoping the fairies would take pity and return the stolen child. Other methods included using iron, believed to repel fairies, or invoking Christian symbols to ward off the supernatural. The changeling legend can be viewed through cultural and psychological lenses. In societies plagued by high infant mortality rates, the myth provided a coping mechanism for the loss and suffering of children. It offered an explanation for why seemingly healthy children could fall ill or behave strangely overnight. Psychologically, the changeling myths are manifestations of parents' fears and anxieties about raising children. The idea of a child being replaced by a fairy doppelganger can be interpreted as a projection of parental guilt and social pressure to have perfect offspring. I sometimes wonder, if I lived back then, would I have believed in changelings? It's hard to say when you're surrounded by such pervasive myths. The fear of fairy abductions influenced how children were cared for and protected. Iron horseshoes were hung above cradles, and Christian prayers were recited to ward off evil spirits. The changeling myth reinforced communities, as neighbors would often come together to support families believed to be afflicted by fairy mischief. Changeling legends varied across Europe, each region adding its own flavor to the myth. In Scandinavian folklore, changelings, known as Botbyting, were depicted as ancient and wise despite their childlike appearance. These changelings were thought to be left by trolls. In Irish folklore, changelings or Lenashi were seen as offspring of fairies, exhibiting frail health and otherworldly beauty. German folklore spoke of Vexabald, changelings left by elves, often sickly and displaying strange behaviors. In the British Isles, particularly Scotland, changelings were left by fairies, with a stolen human child taken to serve the fairy realm. Famous changeling stories from history and literature show insight into how deeply these beliefs influence people's lives. One of the most tragic is that of Bridget Cleary, an Irish woman killed by her husband in 1895 because he believed she was a changeling. Bridget had fallen ill, and despite medical treatment, her condition did not improve. Her husband, Michael Cleary, convinced she had been replaced by a fairy, subjected her to various rituals to force the changeling to reveal itself. Tragically, Bridget died as a result of these actions. In literature, changelings have been explored in works such as William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, where the character of the changeling boy is central to the fairy plot. The changeling serves as a pawn in the power struggle between the fairy king Oberon and Queen Titania. The tale of the changeling makes me think about the human need for explanations. When faced with the unknown, we sometimes create myths to fill the gaps in our understanding. While it might seem fantastical today, it played a crucial role in the lives of those who believed back then. Whatever it is that you take away from this, remember, this is just one story among the many that we tell here. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories from around the world.